This is Jim O'Rear, yes, the perverted Adam Cadabra from Beverly Lane. And you're listening to Gruesome Hertzogg.
Actor, director, and yes, he's the Rob Schneider of the horror industry. Jim O'Rear. Jim, how are you?
I am good. I'm not sure how Rob Schneider would answer that question, so I'll just say I'm good.
Well, I just say that because, you know, Rob Schneider, he does movies, he's funny, you know, and you have that, of course, your background is comedy, correct?
Yes.
So,
yeah, my background is actually in is musical comedy.
Yeah, so it kind of fits. I mean, you don't do musicals, but, you know, you when they put you in a movie, no matter what movie it is, the part that you play, you bring a little bit extra entertainment to it, if you get what I mean. And,
yeah, and I guess it's funny because, when I saw, I don't know, a month or so ago, a few weeks back when I had seen online that you had come up with the name for me, that I was the Rob Schneider of horror, and listening to your explanation of that, I started thinking about it, and I said, well, I guess I sort of do that without knowing it.
Yeah, right. Well, you know, and there's an actress, her name is Cindy Maples, okay? She's in Indiana. You might heard of her. Her and Rusty James, it's her husband. And when I watched Wireface by Christopher Rommel, now when you see her in that short film, she reminds me of Patty Duke. The voice and everything, and I call her the new Patty Duke. So, certain people...
Well, I like Rob Schneider, so I'll take it. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, someday you might get the money. You never know in this industry. But when you're old as you and I are, you know, we have to really, you know, take what we can get and move on.
Exactly. I won't be able to do this too much longer. So.
But anyways, the first movie that I want to talk to you about, and I haven't seen it, but I'm going to try and do some search. But Hayride Slaughter in 2001.
Hayride Slaughter, wow.
That's an oldie, but it stars you, Tina Krause, Dean Paul, and Debbie D. Do you want to give listeners an idea who hasn't seen this film along with me? You know, like a backstory or your experience with this one.
Yeah, I kind of accidentally got involved in that. There's a guy, Gary Whitson, in New Jersey with Wave Films, and he for a long time did a lot of these low budget horror films. You know, kind of back when the whole VHS horror boom craze was going on. You know, and did really well with it. And he I guess knew my work, and as well as some of my writing, and because I had written, you know, for different magazines, different horror magazines, and things like that, and he really liked my writing. So, you know, he came up with this idea of a story, and basically it's sort of an X-Files story. It's these two investigators that there's been some mysterious ritualistic deaths at a haunted attraction, and they go undercover as a magician and magician's assistant to perform at the haunted attraction so that they can get in there and see what's going on, meet everybody, and kind of investigate behind the scenes and all that, and try and find out who the killer is. So that's basically the premise of it, and he thought that my writing style was a nice fit for his script. So he contacted me one day and said, "Can I send you this script, and maybe you give me some tips or pointers or your opinion on, you know, what you think I should do with it, since I respect your writing." And I said, "Well, sure, go ahead and send it." So he sent it to me, and I read it, and I sent him notes back saying, well, you know, I would move this scene to the beginning of the movie, and I would move this here, and I would change this, and I, you know, put what I would do with it. And it was maybe a week or so later that he sent me the new script, and it had incorporated all the changes. And he said he really liked it, and he wanted me to play one of the lead roles in it, as well as take a screenwriting credit. So I said, okay, well, that's cool, you know. So I just kind of accidentally fell into that. And the original script was actually pretty good and very interesting. The problem is, and when you find this movie and you see it, when we showed up to film the movie in New Jersey, I was the only actor that had read the script. So, basically, the movie, almost the entire movie, was ad-libbed. And any scene that I'm in, I am struggling desperately, throwing out lines and things like that to guide the other actors in a certain direction that the story is written in. So the end product is not fantastic. But it was a good exercise for me as an actor in improvisation.
Oh yeah. Excuse me. Well, actually, let's go ahead and do part 2 in 2003.
Yeah, part 2. Actually, it never got very far. It's not out. It's not available. I wrote. Gary asked me if I would be interested in writing a sequel to it, and I said, well, yeah, if I can bring the characters back that were killed, because there were certain characters that I liked that I wanted to have in the sequel, and if he could guarantee me that all of the actors would read the script before we got on set. And he said he would, so I wrote a sequel to it, and I called up my friend Gunnar Hansen, who was the original Leatherface in the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and sent him a copy of the script, and I said, I got a part in this, it would be really cool if you want to do it. And he read it, and he was all for it and wanted to do it. And we kind of got it set up and written and good to go, and then I don't know what happened, it just all fell apart. So it never, and that was, was going to be sort of the redemption film for the first one. So it never came to pass, but that's kind of the way independent cinema works sometimes.
Yep. Trust me, there's a lot of films just like that. You have an interest in, as a reviewer's standpoint, you have an interest in watching it, but it never seems to appear.
Yeah.
Well, the next one, it stars the lovely Debbie Rochon and yourself. Directed by, a very, to me, an underrated talent of Donald Farmer. I've seen some film of his, you know what I'm talking about, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
But Red Lips Eat the Living in 2005. Now,
yes,
it's a creepy title, a weird title, but you know what? A lot of people, I think, in this world today judge a film by its title. It's true. I mean, I attract myself to movies that have weird titles.
Yeah.
Because there's got to be some some gold in there. So
yeah, there's and that's part of I do screenwriting seminars and stuff at some of these conventions I appear at. I teach people how to write scripts, and we get into that about the way a title of a movie depends on what studios are going to buy it and what audience is going to watch it. Just the title alone. So I completely get that you're drawn to a certain title, and this one, Red Lips Eat the Living. There's actually Donald Farmer put together 2 films, and they're both called Red Lips. One is called Eat the Living, which is a zombie story, and then there's Red Lips something else, and it's a vampire story.
Right.
So Eat the Living is actually it's a zombie anthology movie, and Debbie Rochon hosts it, or does wraparound segments. And it's funny if you see the vampire version and the zombie version, the wraparounds are exactly the same. It's exactly the same footage, the wraparounds for the vampire and the zombie one, just all the shorts have been changed. So Donald, I guess, figured out a way to get 2 movies out of basically the same footage by just substituting shorts. But I'm in one of the stories, and I love doing it. I'm not a big fan of short films. or short stories for that, because I'm more of kind of a character guy, and I really like to see characters develop over time.
Right.
And for me, there's not enough time in a short for me to get fully invested in a character. But this was one of those that I really liked. I liked the characters. I liked the direction it went in. And it's basically about these three survivors after the zombie apocalypse has taken over, and they're just trying to get by, and what happens to them. So it's sort of a smaller, shorter kind of Night of the Living Dead, where they're trying to survive each other as well as the monsters that are outside. And it's a neat little short character piece with some blood and guts in it. And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. It was shot in Nashville, Tennessee, in an old factory that was falling down and crumbling, and it's got a real nice look to it. So it was a lot of fun. I think and no bias or anything, but I actually think that's probably the best short on that entire anthology. Is that one? I think it's called Dead End. So I really like doing that one a lot.
Cool. Now, you are very familiar, obviously, with Ted Outerman.
Yes.
And I am too. I like Ted Outerman. I think he's a good actor. He's a good director, a good writer, along with you. But Vampire Tales in 2005. Now, again, it stars the lovely Debbie Rochon and yourself, and Debbie D, and, of course, many other cast members, including Ted Outerman.
Yes.
Tell the listeners exactly, what this film is about.
Hey, this is it's another anthology film based around vampires, and there's a certain theme that runs through the shorts, though. They're not, just all disassociated. But there's a certain theme, and I won't get into thematic elements and things like that. But they're kind of dark, very methodically paced shorts, and because they are so dark and heavy, Debbie Rochon and I, we do the wraparound segments and introduce each of the segments, but we do a lot of really goofy comedy. She plays the Countess, and I play her servant Flim, and we do a lot of silliness in between stuff. So it's an opportunity for people to see Debbie Rochon and myself do comedy, which people don't get to see that often. And basically, that film came about. Ted Alderman was doing some other people's films, and these films were never getting released, as kind of the indie market goes.
Right.
And he was getting real frustrated and saying, God, if I'm just going to make my own movie, so at least people can see me. So I said, okay, well, if you want to do it, I'll write it. And so I wrote all the wraparound segments, and I called Debbie and asked if she wanted to do it, and she did. So, and then Ted collected shorts from some other filmmakers, some vampire shorts that are really good, and we shot it in a couple of days, and he packaged it, and we got it released. So it was. It's a fun little film because just the mixture of the goofy humor with the very different dark vampire stories that are mixed in there, and Ted even does some goofy stuff in there. He comes in as at the end as Debbie Rochon's castle cleaner, and does a little bit of comedy as he's cleaning the castle. On the closing credits, so it's fun. It's a fun watch.
Well, speaking of Ted Outerman, I started watching the movie yesterday, which I never got a chance to finish yet because of a phone call with the work schedule thing. But Shriek of the Sasquatch.
Yeah, I've heard of that. I haven't seen it or anything, but I've heard of that. I think isn't it like Joe Castro or something did that?
No, that was oh God, no, I'm drawing a blank. But,
I can't remember.
But I started watching it last night. It has Scarlett Harum, which she goes by two names. Of course, Ted Outerman's in it. I like movies like that because obviously it's low budget, but I like that it has that grindhouse feel with the film work, and I love that. But speaking of super low budget film that I'm sure a lot of people will turn their nose up at, or they don't like it because they don't understand filmmaking. On the IMDb page, there's 138 votes. It got a 2 out of 10, which I can probably see why people would think that way, but Dawn of the Dead in 2006. Now, the movie's not fantastic, not at all. But, I reviewed it and I enjoyed it. I think I might give it a 5 or a 6. I don't quite remember. But it's a zombie film, and I like zombie films, and I like Tiffany Shepis. I liked it. The cast was interesting. Cheesy and homey, and I think it's entertaining. I mean, it wasn't the best film, obviously, but Donald Farmer, as I mentioned earlier, is one of his films. And
Donald and Donald is funny because he can make some real gems and he can make some stinkers, which I guess is for everybody. You good and bad. And Dorm is one of those that it's it's definitely for a particular audience. It's not for everybody.
Right.
It's definitely for a particular audience. And he actually he was fighting some big odds even making that, because parts were filmed in California, parts were filmed in Tennessee. There are a lot of scenes in the movie where there are two characters talking to each other, and he filmed one side of the conversation in California and the other side of the conversation in Tennessee, because the actors were in two different locations and cut them together. So there was a lot of work that involved in him doing that. And the movie, as many bad reviews as it's got out there on IMDb and stuff like that, it definitely has an audience. There's not a single convention that goes by that I've appeared at that a couple people don't come up and say, "Oh, you're in Dawn of the Dead."
Yeah, right.
So a lot of people watch it. A lot of people love it. I think it's been on cable in some areas. It's been in different stores and stuff. So it got out there. So love it or hate it, he got the film into the marketplace, which is an independent filmmaker's goal.
Right. Well, the next film you sent me a while ago, The Deepening in 2006. Now, of course, it's directed by you and Ted Outerman. That's how I got my first taste of Ted Outerman. Now, this movie I thought was clever. I mean, you had Gunnar Hansen, you mentioned him earlier, Leatherface from the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Debbie Rochon, of course, and Debbie D again, and, of course, yourself. And I like this film. I reviewed it, and the funny part about it is I reviewed it, and I think maybe 6 months later, I can't remember who it was, but somebody realized, no, I'm wrong, that's the other film. I'll back that up. But Lene Landry was in this film as well. Of course, she's in the film that we talked about earlier, The Shriek of the Sasquatch, that she's in that one there. But go ahead and give listeners an idea about The Deepening. I liked it a lot.
Thanks. The Deepening is it's a movie. The basic premise is that there was a fireman who was involved in the cleanup in New York after 9/11 and has suffered post-traumatic stress disorder, and he can't handle it. So he has asked to be transferred to a small little backwoods country town to get away from the craziness and to get treatment and to work for this little small town fire department where not a whole lot happens. And he gets transferred there, and as soon as he gets transferred there, people start dying all around him and, getting murdered in different ways. And it becomes a mystery from that point on as to, is he the one doing it? Is he crazy and doesn't remember? Is it somebody setting him up? Is it a friend? Is it, what actually is going on? So it's kind of a horror whodunit made in the 70s drive-in type style. I think one of the reviews of the film, one of the reviewers even said that if that movie had been made in the 70s, it would be a drive-in classic today.
Yeah.
And I wrote it. Ted came up with the idea. Basically, he called me one day and he said, "Has anybody done a killer fireman movie?" And I said, you know what? Nobody has. You know, there's been dentists and cops and doctors and all that kind of stuff, but there's not been a killer fireman movie. And he goes, let's do a killer fireman movie. So I said, okay, well, we've got to do it, 70s grindhouse drive-in style. So it has every cliche in there, the young campers that get murdered at the campsite. It's got the girl in the shower that gets killed. It's got, all the typical cliches of that time. And, we shot it and kind of grained up the footage and made it ugly. And that's the way it plays. And, again, I was lucky to get Gunnar Hansen and Debbie Rochon and people I worked for to join in and have some fun. And Gunnar was really funny because he read the script and he goes, yeah, this is a cheesy, low budget movie, but it's like a 10 on the scale of cheesy drive-in movies.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of fun, and we've had a lot of response from that movie. It's again, that's another one that I'll be doing convention appearances, and there's always people coming up that have seen the deepening, and I guess it helps too. It streams on Netflix all the time,
right.
So people can watch it at any time in their computer, their phones, whatever. So
yeah, I like the film a lot. I like your character in there, and Debbie Rochon and you had a strange relationship in that film, but it's an entertaining film. I mean, to me, that's one of Debbie Rochon's best films that I've seen as far as the later years. I mean, I'm not saying our movies are bad, but I like her in that film.
I do too. I'm glad you said that because I've always thought, and not many people have mentioned. A couple of people have. I've always thought that's even though it's a very small role in the film.
Right.
I've always thought it's one of Debbie's best performances of anything she's ever done because she does so much with her eyes in that movie. She says so much with her eyes. You can see the pain and stuff going on in her head over this tortured relationship that she's had, and I think she's brilliant in it. And it's funny that you mentioned that you liked my character as well because when I wrote the movie, I wrote my character to be played by Ted, and I was going to play Ted's character, and I won't say too much as to why that got reversed, but Ted wanted to play something he's never played before. He wanted to play against type, so that's why we reversed the roles. And if people haven't seen the movie, when you see the movie, that'll make sense.
Right.
But yeah, it was originally my character was supposed to be played by Ted.
Okay. Again, listeners, if you hear this, it's if you got Netflix or whatever, definitely check it out because Jim O'Rear was different in this film, and he made his character very interesting. That's where the Rob Schneider thing started coming, because I can see Rob Schneider playing a role like that.
Yeah, I could too.
But the next film, Torture Room in 2007, you directed it. Michael Turner and yourself wrote it, and it stars Brooke Bailey and yourself, and Nikki Stressel and Lee Vernort. Vervoort. I can't say it. Something like that.
Tongue-tied.
Now, this here is a torture porn horror film, correct?
It is a torture porn horror film, and here's another one of those independent film stories to where the producer of the film never released it. It's got some, and I wish you would too, because it's got some really gruesome stuff in it. Michael Turner wrote a draft, gave it to me. I wrote a polish of the draft, changed a few things here and there, and he'd asked me to direct. And I took the directing job, and there's some very, very brutal stuff in it. And I mean, so brutal to the point that when we were filming it, there were crew members there that, were holding boom mics and lighting techs and stuff like that were on set that were getting sick and vomiting during some of the scenes. because they were so intense and gross. And although they were seeing, they knew how the special effects were working, and they were seeing, they knew it's all fake. They saw how everything was done, but still, just standing there and watching it, they were physically getting ill. So I know if that would come out, how that would translate on screen, it would make some people very, very upset, I believe. So I wish he would have put it out. I don't know why he didn't follow through on it, but there is a film out there available now, I think on Amazon and stuff, called Torture Room, and it lists me as a director and all our same cast and everything, but it's not ours. So if you're looking for a film that I directed called Torture Room, the one that's out there that says I directed it is not it.
Wow. Yeah, that's weird. But you know what? You sent me this next film. As you know, I'm a big zombie fan. Okay, it's called Scream Farm in 2008. Now, obviously, this was a super low budget film.
Right.
But, I love these styles of films. I love the idea of watching this and see, what you had to use to make it. And this is a typical zombie film, and I love this film. Has this thing ever gotten a release on a distributor?
Yeah, it has, but a very small one.
Okay.
Very, very small one. It's out there, and you can still get it through Amazon. I know, but it's very, very small release. The company that was handling it, just as they were getting it out, and it was going to go into wide release, the owner of the company got put in jail for fraud. So,
yay!
Yeah. So that's why it didn't make it into wider release. It just got a limited release. But it's still out there and available. And I actually, believe it or not, I got a call a couple of days ago from another person in Los Angeles that said, "I saw Scream Farm. Is it available? I want to try and get it into the wider market."
Nice.
Because they really loved it. So it may come out, into a wider release very, very soon, maybe, especially now that zombies are hot again. But like you, I'm a zombie fan. The movie that interested me in horror to begin with was the original Night of the Living Dead.
Yep.
That sparked my interest in the genre. So I wanted to do my own zombie film. I'd acted in several, but I wanted to write one and do something a little bit different with the zombies and them not be typical. And and this was really before a lot of the films that are doing different things with zombies now are doing. I mean, we had zombies that use weapons, that run, that do a variety of things. They use martial arts.
Yeah.
So, I said, I want a fun little zombie movie that you don't have to think about. You can just sit back, have a good time, get drunk with your buddies and watch it and laugh. And that's kind of what we did. We just had fun with it, and luckily most of the people that watch it and go, that was just a riot.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what we wanted. We didn't want to make a fantastic high-budget zombie thing with, all this subtext and everything. No, we just wanted to have fun. So, I kind of came up with a basic premise that what happened, what if there was this experimental drug that was on the drug market, and there were gangsters running this experimental drug, and some of it gets stolen and hidden inside a haunted house at Halloween that kids are building, and the kids find it and start smoking it, and it turns them into zombies.
Yep.
And just about the time the zombie apocalypse begins, the gangsters come down to this haunted house looking for their drugs, and now you've got, gangsters against kids, against zombies, and, now we're set up into kind of the Night of the Living Dead farmhouse type of situation again, where, the humans fighting each other are really worse than the monsters that are outside. And it was just a different, fun little experiment, and I'm real happy with it. It is cheap and cheesy and low budget, but it's just a lot of fun.
Yep, and it's one of my favorites of the zombie genre.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. The next film I think is Donald Farmer's best one. This one I came across by absolute accident. It's called Chainsaw Cheerleaders in 2008.
Yeah, I think it probably is technically his best horror film. He's done some films outside the genre, some Civil War stuff and all that are probably technically more proficient. But as far as the horror genre goes, I have to agree with that. It's a fun little film about a demon and some cheerleaders and demon possession and and again I got to work with Debbie Rochon in it. We get paired up with each other quite a bit, and Tiffany Shepard is in it. And it's again, I think it's just another sit back and have fun movie.
Yep, I like this one. I mean, Tiffany Shepard's played a very interesting character in this film. It's probably one of her best that I've seen besides the Frankenstein film that she did most recently.
Yeah.
But, it's one of those films where I said, I got to check this out. I mean, come on, cheerleaders?
You got to see anything that's called Chainsaw Cheerleaders.
Yes.
It's a must.
Well, the next film you sent me as well, and it stars the big guy, Kane Hodder, played your brother. Now,
yeah.
And Stacey Dixon played your sister, if I'm correct.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And this film, I knew nothing about. I absolutely loved it. The Kane Hodder and the Jim Maria chemistry in this movie was completely crazy. You have a big-ass brother like Kane, and you have little you. I mean, it's like, oh my God, he's like a giant compared to you. But that's, I think, what really kept this movie on an even kelter, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. A lot of people have mentioned that when the brothers are on screen, that's what really drew them in. Is they loved watching the brothers, and it was a lot of fun. It was a blast. Ben Dixon directed that movie and wrote it with a guy named Gene Hadley, and I've been in every one of Ben Dixon's films. He's done, God, I don't know, probably 5 or 6, and this is probably his best, technically.
Yeah.
And it's just it's kind of it's sort of a Texas Chainsaw Massacre, House of 1,000 Corpses sort of family film about a family that runs a mortuary and kills people and robs them of their jewels and stuff for one thing to get cash, and then also milks the family members for the funeral costs, so they're getting paid twice off the dead bodies.
Yeah.
And it's about the sister who just wants to be normal and escape, and they're not willing to let her escape.
Yep.
So it's a neat little kind of twisted little tale, and Trisha Cast is in this also, who is an Emmy Award winner. She's on, I think, The Young and the Restless. She's been on that for years, and she's been on several commercial television series. And she plays her mom, and she just cracks me up. I think she's fantastic in the film.
Yep.
But it's a lot of fun. That one again is available limitedly, but they're finishing up. They're finally now finishing up all the DVD extras, the behind the scenes, and the music video and stuff like that for the wide release. So I'm hoping that sometime this year the wide release will come out with all the extras.
That's excellent. Now the next film, Hell House in 2009. I have not seen this. Directed by Jason Crow and Ronnie Jonah.
Mm-hmm.
And what can you say about this one?
Okay, well, this one is another one of those that you're not the only one that hasn't seen it. No one has. And I don't know the whole story behind it as to what happened, but it's another haunted house story. It takes place at a haunted attraction, and it was filmed at Industrial Nightmare in Jeffersonville, Indiana, which is a huge haunted house set up in an old factory with like millions of dollars worth of props. so it's a neat set, and a neat look, a neat location, and it's kind of it's about, you know, it's sort of like the old typical what happens if a real killer gets loose in a haunted attraction and starts killing people, and you don't know you just think he's an actor in the haunted house, and that's kind of what happens in it, it's a neat premise. I don't know what happened. They filmed it, they completed it, and then they decided that they wanted to reshoot it. So they reshot it with a different camera. So basically they filmed the movie twice. And that's where it sits. So I don't know if they're planning on releasing it, if they're finishing it, or what. But it's got Al Snow in it, the WWF wrestler Al Snow, who's a trip. And Daniel Emery Taylor is in it from Return of the Swamp Thing and Road Trip.
Yeah.
And it's got some pretty neat people in it, and it was a blast to make, because I love haunted attractions, and just getting to work inside Industrial Nightmare was cool. But keep our fingers crossed. Put pressure on Jason Crow to put the film out.
I sure will. I sure will. I got the power. The next film I got sent to me, and I have not yet to watch it, but I definitely will. It's called A Dead Matter in 2010. Edward Douglas. Yeah. Edward Douglas contacted me. Hey, do you want a copy? I said, sure. Not knowing that it weighs like 10 pounds when I got it.
It does.
Because it has a 2-disc, and I think one is the movie and the other one's the music. But I will get this thing watched. I'm behind. But go ahead and give an idea about this film.
Yeah, watch that movie. It's very, very cool. It was Ed Douglas's first movie, and Ed Douglas is one of the brains behind Midnight Syndicate. Midnight Syndicate has a huge fan base. They do a lot of spooky music. They've scored a lot of horror films, and they provide most of the music for the major haunted attractions, like at Universal Studios and things like that. They're Ed and Gavin. They're brilliant in their music and what they do. And Ed had been wanting to make a film. He made a little short version of The Dead Matter years and years and years ago with some buddies, just as a fun experiment. And then he decided that he wanted to make a full-length regular feature out of it, and got hooked up with Bob Kurtzman, who was from the K&B Effects Group, who also wrote From Dusk Till Dawn, and just worked on like everything.
Right.
They got a budget together, and cast Andrew Devoff, who's the Wishmaster, and Tom Savini. So it's got some good cast members, good genre names, and basically the story is there's an old mystical relic that a girl finds, and her brother has just died, and she's torn up about it, and she finds this mystical relic, and she's been told that this relic can bring the dead back to life. So she decides that she wants to use it to bring her brother back from the dead. Well, little does she know that there's a race of vampires that are also looking for the relic, because what they want to do with it is use it to raise an army of the dead, and use the zombies to sort of take over, among other things. There's a couple other twists in there that I'm not going to mention because it'll ruin the surprise. But I play a vampire who used to be in charge of all the vampires, and then he got hooked on this synthetic drug. And Tom Savini comes in, who's a vampire also, and he sort of takes over this mob of vampires and gets me strung so far out on these drugs that I'm now pretty much his slave. And he uses me to do his dirty work in exchange for drugs. Well, Andrew Devoff is the master vampire, and he's going to wipe out anybody he has to get this magic relic. And Savini sends me out on the task of tracking this master vampire and trying to stop him. So that's sort of the idea behind the story. There's a lot more to it. But it's very, very unusual. It's a very different story. It's got a definite sense of dark humor that runs through it, and just a whole lot of fun. Great cast, and I think it's one of Tom Savini's best performances ever as well. He's great in it. He's so good in it.
Excellent. I'm going to watch that. But the next film, I did an interview with you and the cast members last week, and I'm just going to touch on this briefly in case people didn't hear the interview or whatever. But Beverly Lane in 2010. We all
Beverly
know.
Lane, yes, that bunch of assholes.
Yes, exactly. Directed by the biggest asshole. No, I'm just kidding. Joshua Hall. He'll kill me if he hears that. But I got to run down some of these cast members that I think are very funny. Of course, we have the boy in the group, Noah East. Remember that?
Yes.
Andy. And we have the asshole Raymond Kester as Terry. You remember that? Eric T. Schroeder as Rick Ashley. I think he was drunk and it was supposed to be Ashley. You have the elder clown, David Ross, who I think is such a gentleman, all seriousness. And then we have, Morgan Shepherd as Gay. Now, poor Morgan. Now, I might have mentioned this, but in the interview, I had to call people, right? So, he didn't answer. So he calls back and goes, "Who is this?" I said, "It's Gruesome. It's supposed to be an interview." "Oh, okay." It was so comical. But then when the interview started, we started doing the interview and we're talking, all of a sudden he was gone. We had no idea poor guy was gone. Oh, well.
It was like that on set, too. Where'd Morgan go?
And then we have that smart-ass mime,
Yes.
Matt Rich.
Matt Rich.
But, it's just, those guys, that was one of my, I mentioned it on Facebook. I said that was probably one of my most favorite interviews that I've ever done with a big group like that. I think it was, who was it that said, yes, it's 8 guys and Noah. I can't remember.
Exactly, yeah.
I can't remember who said that, but
that was either Josh or Matt, probably.
Yes.
I can't remember.
But I know people heard the interview because it's been getting a lot of hits, and the ones who didn't, and even the ones who didn't see Beverly Lane, go ahead and give listeners your perspective of how you got involved in that and the experience that you had with that.
Yeah, Beverly Lane it's a great film. When I first heard about it, the title alone, we were talking about titles, the title alone sort of attracted me to it. I went, Beverly Lane, that's a great title. I wonder what that's about. And I heard that it was a zombie comedy, which is like Shaun of the Dead meets The Office, basically, and that it featured this cast of oddball characters, a bunch of clowns, a magician, a mime, a barbershop quartet, and they're having like this, their boss is retiring, so they're having a Coney Island themed going away party with all these different characters, and that's when the zombie apocalypse breaks out, and all of these oddball people are trapped in the office together.
Yeah.
And you've got clowns that are secretly mafia hitmen, and the magician is perverted and is trying to get with all the girls, and it's just this mess. And I got involved because I'd heard about it, and Jim Doherty, who I guess you interviewed last night or night before, I had worked with Jim on a couple of things, and I said, Jim, what is this thing, this Beverly Lane? I'm interested in this. He said, well, let me have the director contact you. So he mentioned me to the director, and he wanted me on board, and he sent me a script, and I said, I got to do this. So I was the last cast member put with that cast, and I'm so glad that it worked out, and because the cast of actors in it were all incredible. I mean, there's a ton of other people in the cast that didn't get mentioned. Angel Steelbauer and James Copeland, and I mean just a ton of people. And they were all fantastic. DJ Mincy was a trip, Martin Nash. But it was one of these casts that a lot of them had theater training, so they knew the script. They could do entire scenes all the way through without breaking, which is rare on a film. Normally you shoot a film and you do, a couple lines at a time and you cut. We were able to do pages at a time. And they were used to improvisation. So, and Josh as the director gave us the freedom to do pretty much whatever we wanted within, the script settings. So it was it was a really great experience, and I love all those people that worked on it, cast, crew, directors, everything. And I think for a first film, it was Josh's first film to direct. I think it's incredibly well done.
Yes, and I do want to apologize. The rest of the cast did a great job as well. I didn't mean not to mention them. I just referring to the interview. All due respect, you guys were all fantastic in that film.
Yeah. There's not a single weak link in that film. I don't think. Everybody pulls their own weight, and everybody worked together with each other just superbly.
Yep, I agree, and it's one of my favorites, like I said before. Now, the next film, which have not seen, you're going to send it to me, so I'm kind of anxious to see. Underground Entertainment, the movie in 2010.
Yeah, I got to send this one to you. This is a mockumentary. It's sort of in the style of Spinal Tap and the Ruddles, except it is actually based on a real thing. Where Spinal Tap was a fake documentary about a fake band. This is a pseudo-fake documentary about a real show that a group of us worked on 20 years ago. This is the 20th anniversary of the show, and it sort of is a behind-the-scenes look at that show, and kind of chronicles the making of the show and how it came about, and how basically everything that we have in the world today is because of our show. So that's the comedy part of it, and like it's a mockumentary, so there's a lot of silliness in it, a lot of fun. But it boasts a huge cast of genre stars. It's got Robert Englund, who was Freddy Krueger, Danielle Harris is in it, Tony Todd, William Forsythe, Tom Savini, Ernie Hudson, Serena Vincent, Billy Drago. Gosh, the list goes on and on and on.
Scott Taylor Compton, Chris Christopherson, Mel Tillis, Debbie Rochon, Ron Jeremy, Daniel Taylor, Lloyd Kaufman, Scott Geider, Judith Thea. No, wait.
So yeah, like I said, it's a huge genre cast, and all the people involved really got it. They understood the concept of the film, where we were taking ourselves much more seriously than we really should have, and they do the same thing, and they all talk about how this show influenced their lives and their careers, and but it's just a really silly look at this show that we did for Warner Brothers 20 years ago, and the show was genre based, really. It was a show that was it's been called a cross between Entertainment Tonight and Saturday Night Live.
Wow.
And it covered comic books and horror and music and comic book conventions and things like that. And it's just a look back at that in a real silly light. And luckily people have really got it and understood it and had a lot of fun with it. And it's screening really well right now. So
excellent. Well, the next movie I want to see in a worse way is called Postmortem America 2021 in 2011.
Yes. Postmortem is it's a film done by Cameron Scott, and it's his first movie as well, and he's done a fantastic job. He wanted to do a zombie movie, basically a zombie movie if Quentin Tarantino was to make one. So it's got a grindhouse style, a grindhouse feel, lots of fast cars, hot women, violence. Just like Tarantino would make a zombie film. And he shot it all in black and white also, so it gives it a real retro-ish feel. And it's criminals and zombies, and it's a film that focuses on the criminals, like many of Tarantino's films do. And I play Severin, the main baddie, and my partner is Monique Dupree, who's she's fantastic in it. And Linnea Quigley is in it. Linnea Quigley plays my ex-girlfriend, who I thought I killed, but I didn't. And she's coming back for revenge, and she's picking off my gang one by one until she gets to me. At the same time the revenge story is going on, the zombie apocalypse breaks out. So so now you've got this war between gangsters and this woman trying to pick them off one by one, while at the same time dealing with zombies. So it's another weird sort of mixture. It's sort of a gangster, western, horror film, kind of all combined. And and he decided to do something different with it, and instead of release it as a single film, he's releasing it in chapters, like a serial.
Oh, wow.
So the first chapter came out, about 6 months ago or so, and I think he's getting ready to release the second chapter now. So the first chapter kind of introduces you to the characters and the situation, and then I hear that the second chapter, I haven't seen it yet, I hear that the second chapter is when all hell starts breaking loose.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
See, it's a neat little film. You'll have to get a couple chapters of it and check it out. It's got zombies in it, so you'll like it.
Yes. Now, the next movie, I did an interview promoting it. It's 3 Tears on Blood-Stained Flesh in 2012.
Yes.
Now, it stars yourself, of course. I hate to say this wrong. I think it's Jim Doherty, or Dougherty. I can't remember how he pronounces it.
I say Jim Doherty, and he's never slapped me yet.
Angela Steele and Scott Gagnon, of course, Sonny Burnett and Mark A. Nash, Eric T. Schroeder, Rusty James, which, we know who he is, but, give your experiences. How'd you, I know he told me, but in your own words, how did you come about being in this film?
Yeah, it was kind of almost sort of a Beverly Lane situation again. I guess he knew of me from some different films and stuff like that, and I had heard of this film, and again the title caught my eye. And I said, well, that's a cool title, and again, Jim Doherty was working on it, and like Beverly, I contacted Jim and I said, tell me about this movie. It sounds kind of cool, and he told me about it, and it's I don't know the whole story. I was I'm a supporting character in it. I just shot on it for one day, but he kind of gave me a basic idea of what was going on, and he said, well, let me see if Jacob is would be interested in having you on. And Jacob had seen Beverly Lane and some other stuff that I had done, and said, I got a couple roles that you'd be perfect for, and he sent me 3 or 4, and I said, well, you pick. It's your film. It's your film. It's your vision. Tell me what you want me to do. And he said, you're going to be the skanky, sleazy, scumbag, mean strip club owner. And I went, that's me. I'm in. So I get to go on there and be rude to strippers and crude and mean and again, like in Beverly, he knew how much ad-libbing and stuff I did in Beverly. He sort of gave me a rough script, and he said, basically, you just do what you do. And so that's what I did, and it was a blast. And I really like Jacob a lot. I think people are going to be really pleased with the film when it comes out, and I think you're going to have a lot of fun with it. And it's one of those films where it's just like everybody dies. It's just a bloodbath.
Oh, wow. You know, I am anxious to see that myself. I mean, it's funny how I came across him. You remember PJ Starks, who sent me a message on Facebook and said, hey, you know, would you be interested? I said, sure. And then, of course, PJ sent me his film that I reviewed last week, Hallows Eve, which that's another film that I thought was a fun film to watch. A haunted house, a killer in a haunted house. That was a fun film, too.
Yeah.
You know. But now, is there anything else you want to talk about that I did not mention?
Gosh, I don't know. I mean, there's tons. We've probably gone way long, but I've got a few things coming up, a few things that are have just come out or about to come out. Like I said, watch for Underground. Underground Entertainment is playing at a lot of the. It's playing on the convention circuit right now. Actually, I think the next time it plays will be at the Dead Winter Convention in London, Kentucky in mid-February, and that'll be a fun show. So if anybody is in the London, Kentucky area in a few weeks, they should come by Dead Winter Horror Convention and meet me, and Tony Todd will be there, and Ari Lehman and Daniel Taylor, and we're having a screening of the movie there. And for anybody that likes audio dramas, we've done a few audio dramas. A Christmas Carol just came out on CD with a fantastic cast. Daniel Roebuck from Glee and The Fugitive is in it. John Delancey from Star Trek. Reggie Bannister. Kyle Hebert. Mary McGlynn. And Danny Roebuck is fantastic as Scrooge. He's just fantastic.
Wow.
And he's a joy to listen to. And all the money for those go to charity. So, and you can find links for this stuff on my website. We did another one with Kevin Sorbo and John Billingsley.
I have that one.
You have that one, Follow the House of Usher?
Yes, I have that
one.
Yeah,
that was another one we did for charity. And we've got another one coming out later this year, Sleepy Hollow. So, if anybody wants to pick those up, the money goes to help kids. And you can find that on my website. Just go to my website, which is jimorear.com, and it lists a lot of my upcoming appearances that I'm making, as well as films that I'm working on. I'm doing a Stephen King film called The Boogeyman next month.
Wow.
I'm doing a film called Retribution in April. I'm doing an animated series for a guy in May about hitmen. So a lot of stuff coming up, but you can find all that with links to everything on my website, and that's also got a link to my Facebook page. And Facebook page is where I can be silly.
Right.
So, so if you want to see a little bit more silly side, you can go there too.
Well, great. I want to thank you very much for coming on. We've tried 2 times before and didn't quite work out, but now we finally got it done. Yeah,
exactly.
You're a brilliant actor. I don't care what anybody says. I like your work.
Thank you.
And anything that you're in that I can get my hands on, I definitely go out and buy it because, it's just me. I enjoy the comedy aspect of your films and the horror parts that you're in, and just all around a great entertainer. And I really appreciate you taking time for coming on tonight.
Thank you. I appreciate the compliments, and I appreciate you having me on.
No problem. You take care of yourself.